Hi, welcome to Astrobabble. I'm Donna from Donna B Astrology.
And I'm Linda from Scullywag Astrology.
And today we are going to be talking about the full moon in Sagittarius, along with the mansion and along with the stone. And while Linda is getting up the screen for the full moon in Sagittarius, I will talk about the moon mansion is Al Shula, and it has the nature of Mercury and Mars. So I'm thinking that's business, but I don't know. It doesn't say that it really is, but it is good for anything you do with the earth, growing, planting, that kind of thing. It is good for besiegement as well. So if you have your sights on another city, don't come this way. But it would be favorable for if you went to whatever city you wanted to, or maybe do it in a game. Um, it is not good for captives. If you are a captive, there's horrendous things that they say that could happen that you're probably not going to get free. And it is not good for traveling by ships.
Oh,
So that would be boats and things because yeah, that is the mansion of the moon.
interesting. Uh, because this moon is in Sagittarius, that makes Jupiter the ruler. Unfortunately, Jupiter is in aversion to this full moon because it's in Taurus, and it's like in a blind spot. So Jupiter, as ruler of this full moon, kind of can't give any assistance, which is a shame because it is a benefic planet. And at the time of the full moon, it will be conjunct or seen to be right next to Venus, the other benefic. Mars can see this full moon by trine, and Saturn can see this full moon by square. So perhaps full moons are about high points, completions, endings. It's like a harvest. Maybe something you are looking forward to completing or achieving. Maybe there's going to be a need to go back over things to make sure that everything's exactly as it should be. Saturn can represent restrictions or delays.
It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of energy, but wow, when these planets start shifting, it's like everything seems to move. Just a little bit of shift seems to aspect other planets.
Yeah, we've got a lot of planets in Taurus at the time of this full moon. So planets in Taurus are in aversion, or they're right next to where the sun is because the sun's moved into Gemini at this time. And because they're so close, it's like being in the blind side of a mirror sort of thing. You know, when you're in a car and you kind of can't see a car that's coming up behind you because it's in the blind spot. And the full moon itself will be opposite the sun. So it's in Sagittarius, and it's also an inversion to Taurus. So, but later on, when we get to the aspects, a lot of those planets are going to move into Gemini. So it will be interesting. There's a strong focus on wherever Taurus is in your chart at the moment, but that is going to change. And shall we have a look at the horoscopes for this upcoming full moon?
Yes, and I did want to mention that the information I got from the Moon Mansion is from Christopher Warnock's book, The Moon Mansion. So don't want to forget that.
Mhm. And when we go through these horoscopes for the next 2 weeks, we recommend that you listen to your ascendant sign, not your sun sign or your moon sign. And if you don't understand why, we've done a video all about that, and I'll put a link to that in the description.
We'll talk about the horoscopes.
Mhm.
And so if you are a Sagittarius rising, this is the full moon is going to be happening in your first house. And full moons are all about culminations or endings or, things that are finally coming together and being fruitful after you've planted the seed about 6 months ago. This is time to be able to see the fruits of your labor, in other words. And so when this is happening in your first house, with if you are a Sagittarius rising, these will be things like, if you've ordered shoes and you finally arrived. That would be a very long time to wait for shoes. Uh, but if there's anything that you have had put in the works about 6 months ago, this will start coming to fruition right around now. And this could be things that you change just about yourself, whether it's your hair, a wardrobe change, or some kind of change that you've made that is just for yourself.
Yeah, there's a lot of sixth house emphasis for our Sagittarius ascendants too. So, first house is also health and vitality. So maybe you've been battling some illness, perhaps, and maybe this is a time when you start to get on top of it, which would be really good. And for our Scorpio ascendants, this full moon will be in your second house. The second house is the house of our income and finances. It's our resources, what supports us. So there may be a high point, ending, or culmination to do with those matters. Maybe you've been madly saving money for something, and at this time you're able to purchase that item, or maybe there's a bonus that comes in at work, a wage increase, or something similar.
And if you are a Libra rising, this is going to be happening in your third house. And the third house has a lot to do with your community. It has a lot to do with maybe even short-term travel. So if wherever you travel, like in your city or in the next couple of towns over, it's where you're very familiar with that area. It also has a lot to do with your brothers and sisters, even your extended family of cousins, aunts and uncles. It can do with language. So if you were waiting on contracts, this might be an opportunity for them to, you might be going through some of that paperwork. This is things that are culminating around, whether it's a car or your short-term travel or even early education. This is all about this third house has even family, all these themes that will be activating or coming to fruition around those themes.
And if you are a Virgo ascendant, this full moon is happening in your fourth house. The fourth house is our home and living conditions, and it's also our family, and in particular, our parents. So it could be that there's some sort of high point, culmination, or ending to do with your parents. It could have something to do with a home. Maybe you are finally moving into a new place, or it's also real estate matters, so it could have something to do with that. It's our heritage. This could be something like discovering something about your family. Maybe you've been working on something for a long time, or it could be something to do with just your parents. It may have nothing to do with you because, we're Hellenistic astrologers, and the first house tends to be very much about ourselves. But a lot of these houses refer to other people in our life, and the fourth house tends to be parents.
And if you are a Leo rising, this full moon is happening in your fifth house. And the fifth house is it's our creative house. It's the things that we create, whether it is children or art or, music. I mean, anything that you would do for a hobby. If you do model airplanes, this might be when you finish that whatever you were working on that you might have started 6 months ago. This is when it comes to fruition, that those things that you create. It's the fifth house is the fun house. So it would be the house where things are coming to fruition for you if you are a Leo rising.
And if you are a Cancer ascendant, this full moon is happening in your sixth house. The sixth house is illness, pets, and service to others. It can include employees, and that can include like a literal employee. If you are an employer, it could be a subordinate at work, somebody that reports to you in some sort of fashion, or it could be somebody like a tradesperson coming into your home to do some work for you. It is also service to others, so that can include people like first responders, doctors and nurses, etc. So there's some sort of high point, culmination, or ending to do with these matters. It could be maybe you've been studying for a career that does actually serve the public or the greater good, and you graduate at some time, or maybe you've been accepted into a course at this time. It could be something to do with a pet. It could be they're graduating from obedience school, or maybe you've been saving or waiting to be able to adopt a pet, and that comes through at this time. It could have something to do with illness. Maybe you've been battling an illness and it comes through at this time. There's a lot of planets in your 11th house of your hopes and dreams at this time, at the time of the full moon. So maybe, yeah, maybe if you have been battling something, that comes to some sort of completion or ending at this time.
And if you are a Gemini rising, this is going to be happening in your 7th house. And the 7th house is the house of the other. It's the house of the, if it's where you get the appointments from, if you have a commitment from one other person, whether it's a marriage partner or a doctor, a hairdresser. It's where if you make an appointment and it is set up to, you're set up to, see that person, this is the house. Also those houses where, because you don't make an appointment to see a really good friend either, but if you have a committed relationship, this is the house where those things will be coming to fruition around the one other person that you have in your life. If you're a Gemini rising, and happy birthday, Geminis.
And if you are a Taurus ascendant, this full moon is in your 8th house. The 8th house is associated with other people's money. It's shared finances. It can be the partner's money. It includes topics such as debts, loans, insurance, taxation. So there could be some sort of ending or completion to do with these matters. Maybe for some, that have, going through a separation, it could be this is a time where an agreement is reached. It could be the time where you are approved for a loan. Being a Taurus ascendant, you have a lot of focus on your 1st house, which is all about you at this time. You do have Jupiter and Venus really close together at this time. They would have had their conjunction just before this full moon. So could be quite positive for a lot of Taurus ascendants. Maybe a little bit surprising too with Uranus in there. Uranus has been in there for a number of years, but it's just had Jupiter and Venus go over it as well. So interesting times, but yeah, some sort of high point, completion, or ending to do with those matters.
And if you are Aries, right, an Aries rising, this is going to be happening in your 9th house. And the 9th house is the house of higher education, philosophy, and those types of subjects. Those types of subjects that are far away, including foreigners. This is things that will be coming to culmination, are even around legal matters. But this is the philosophy, higher education house. Could also have to do with publishing, astrology, any of the esoteric subjects. This is things that will be coming to culmination around those themes. If you have been involved in a legal matter, this might be coming to culmination. If you are an Aries rising, this will be finishing up those far subjects.
And if you are a Pisces ascendant, this full moon is happening in your 10th house. So there may be a strong focus on just a lot of attention on you at this time, because the full moon is, when the moon is the brightest, it's in the 10th house, which is an incredibly visible house. A lot going on in your 3rd house of Taurus, which is siblings and immediate family, also communications, neighbors, local neighborhood. So maybe there's something going on to do with one of those topics. Maybe you're doing something with family, like immediate family, siblings, or to do with neighbors and your immediate neighborhood. And for some reason, you're in the spotlight. Could be the culmination or the completion, the high point of some project or something that you've been doing. And yeah, hopefully this is quite positive. There is that moon's making a sextile to Pluto in the 12th. So Pluto can be quite transformative in the 12th house, which is the house of our undoing. Maybe, I don't know.
Some kind of interchange.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking, don't get a little bit too carried away either, perhaps. A little bit of ego might be your downfall if you're not careful. That's kind of probably being overly cautious. But yeah, just, enjoy yourself. You're in the spotlight. But the thing with the 10th house, it's not just fame and attention, it can also be infamy. Just the fact that Pluto is in your 12th house. Mind you, Pluto is going to be in your 12th house for the next 20 something years, apart from when it retrogrades back into your 11th for a little while later in the year. But yeah, just something to watch, since that full moon is making a close sextile to Pluto. So yeah, enjoy the moment, but maybe stay a little humble too.
And if you are an Aquarius rising, this new or full moon is going to be happening in your 11th house. And the 11th house is the house of your hopes and dreams. It's also the house of your the people you hang around with, your associations, your friends. It could also, yeah, it like when I am talking about associations, it's those people who support you in whatever you're doing in your 10th house. So this is the things that will be coming to culmination of anything that you might have started. If you started a group about 6 months ago, this might be when it all gets together, or when you're planning on something with a group, this might be when you're actually doing the class reunion, the whatever kind of group you might be involved with.
And if you're a Capricorn ascendant, this full moon is in your 12th house. The 12th house is the house of our undoing. It's also secret and hidden matters. It's hidden illness. It's places of seclusion and confinement, which can include places like prisons, hospitals, but also monasteries and retreats and that. It's working behind the scenes. So there may have been working behind the scenes, or for some, this could be illness. We do have the sun in the 6th house at this time, but there may be a high point, culmination, or completion to do with these matters. There is a strong focus in the 5th house of your creativity, children, fun activities. So yeah, it's probably not the most joyous full moon. The 12th house, along with the 8th, is and even the 6th, kind of difficult houses.
When I see that moon is low in declination, so it is out of bounds.
Yeah.
So the stone that I have for Sagittarius, this is a really good stone. And it's called Jet. It is very shiny. And it is pretty light. I'm only holding this huge thing with like two fingers. It's pretty light. It's got almost the heaviness of like lava rock, if you're familiar with lava rock, but it's not like light like a sponge, but it's pretty light. It's amazingly light for its weight. So if you had a lemon that had been sitting on the counter for 3 weeks, a month, or whatever, whenever it like loses the water amount in it, and you hold a regular lemon of the same size, and you can tell that one's heavier and one's not as heavy. That's what this kind of stone is. It's jet, and it is a very light, it feels like the heaviness of like lava stone. So if you're looking at a flat tourmaline of the same size, it's going to be heavy. This is not. It's a very light stone. And as you can tell with its name, it is good for traveling. So it protects you during traveling. It's found pretty much everywhere. It's been seen in jewelry that was made 1500 years ago, 1500 BC. So that's how long it's been in use, and it was found in England. So that's where a nice, I guess, the gemmy quality of jet would be from. This is what I have here is not necessarily. I don't know what would the gemmy. I'm not a jeweler, and I'm not a doctor, and a psychotherapist. So whatever these things do, these will enhance things, but there's no guarantee. But it draws out negative energy. It's good for travel. It's good for astro travel as well. It is good for depression. It is very good for migraines. If you suffer from migraines, grab a piece of this and keep it with you. This would be one of the only black stones I would recommend that you hold on to for a while, and then check in with yourself a week later. Make sure that you're not getting lower on your depression level. So you want to like hold on to this, but it's really good for migraines. So if you have migraines, this is called Jet. And I would definitely get one of these pieces around. It's pretty common. It's found, um, let's see, it's found in US, Poland, England, France, Germany, Spain, India, and Russia. It's very, very common, but it does neutralize the negative energies around you. And it's a really good start. It does have a Mohs hardness of 3 to 4, so be careful that it doesn't break, because it does break easily. And this is called Jet. And
Nice.
I will be writing an article about it because it is a really good stone to have in your arsenal of um helper
Repertoire.
stones. Okay, so the first aspect we are going to look at is Jupiter will sextile Neptune. And when Jupiter sextiles Neptune, that's a good time to be working on goals. This is a good time to be thinking of those long-term goals of of whatever you're trying to work towards.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a good time to be doing the real thought out stuff, but this is definitely a time to explore. Neptune kind of is that dreamy state. Jupiter is that futuristic goal oriented, long distance plans type of energy.
So this is happening in the US later the same day. Yeah, Jupiter sextile Neptune. It's generous, altruistic, um, maybe a little bit overly generous or overly altruistic, but not necessarily in a negative way at this time. Jupiter and Venus are still very closely conjunct at this time. Venus has moved past that conjunction, but yeah, Venus and Jupiter together, even though they're both benefics, can be a little bit too much of a good thing too. And then you've got this Neptune, which can kind of blur the boundaries. So, maybe you give more than you originally intend to, or maybe you promise more than you can actually deliver, but not in a necessarily negative way, but just like, you're inspired and feeling optimistic and generous and want to help and all that, but maybe you're not fully taking in the whole picture at this time. When we were talking about the full moon earlier, we spoke about how there is a square to Saturn and Saturn's limitations and delays, and that maybe at this time it's going to take longer than you anticipate. That might be something that in the next 2-week period that you find that, oh, okay, I've signed up for this or committed myself to this, but it's a little bit more than you originally. Yeah, so that's also happening on the 23rd of May. So interesting.
That sense of false information of what that is. When you're making decisions, that's why it's not good for decisions, I'm thinking. Yeah, you're right. I
Yeah,
like that for sure.
yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be a negative thing here, just that you may not fully appreciate how much is involved. Yeah.
And then the next aspect, and I really didn't want to see this coming because I'm a Taurus rising and I didn't want to see Venus leaving her home sign. But if you're a Taurus rising, Venus jumping into your house of finances is not a bad thing. I'd rather have that than in there than Mars, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But when Venus moves into Gemini, she's leaving her sign of where she can fully function well and nicely. In Gemini, she's that cooler element. She kind of has an affinity, but not as much. Not There are worse houses, worse places where Venus could be. She is leaving her house of where she can rule. She is peregrine in this house. So
Mm.
this is it is a demotion for Venus to be in Gemini.
Yeah, this is also happening on the 23rd in the US, around about 4:30 in the afternoon. When a planet is really close to the sun, well, particularly when it comes to Venus and Mercury, when they're too close to the sun, they can't be seen. So Venus and Mercury, depending on where they are in the chart at the time, are either a morning star or an evening star. But when they're so close to the sun, they can't be seen. They're said to be under the beams, or when they're within 8 degrees, combust, they're burnt up. And that's what is happening to Venus here. When she was in Taurus, because she was in her own sign, she was kind of protected, even though she was still invisible. But as Donna mentioned, she's no longer in Taurus where she ruled. So it was like she was in her own home. She had all the tools and resources that she needed. So now she's in Gemini and she's under the beams of the sun. She's combust, she's burnt up. So she's not going to be fully at the peak of her skills or not at the top of her game. But look, Venus in Gemini is fun, it's flirty, it's a very mercurial Venus because it's ruled by Mercury, as it's in Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. It's a fun, flirty sign, maybe for some kind of a little bit of secret or kind of hidden romances, perhaps. But Venus is also our relationships in general, not just romance, it's our friendships and it's beauty and art and harmony. You know, maybe for some people, this will be working on something creative, music behind the scenes because it's hidden. And she's going to come up for her Kazemi when she meets up with the sun and has her new phase. So she's moving pretty quickly at this time. She's moving at 124% of her usual speed. And yeah, so wherever Gemini is in your chart, because Venus is a benefic, there tends to be good things associated with the topics and people associated with wherever Gemini is in your natal chart.
And the next aspect will be Venus will trine Pluto. And when this happens, this can be power plays. This can also be very intense love kind of feeling. So if you had just met somebody a couple of weeks ago and then you're meeting somebody again, meeting that person again, this might be where it really intensifies. This is it's intense type of Venusian uh, aspects or qualities or themes.
Yeah. This is happening on the 25th of May in the US. Venus, so our relationships, whether that's love or just friendship. Pluto is quite transformative. It's about honesty and depth. It can be controlling. So there may be some issues at this time for some people, not everybody, but for some people about obsession or jealousy or the darker side of relationships. For others, it may be about getting deep down and honest and vulnerable with each other. Yeah, we still have, Venus is still pretty close to Jupiter at this time, and Jupiter is going to follow her into Gemini pretty soon. But yeah, she's also burnt up under the sun at this time, though. So she's not at her strongest. She's not in the sign that she rules. So yeah, maybe just be aware that this is going to be certainly a time of heightened emotions, perhaps. Yeah, just be aware, kind of, if you can pull yourself back from kind of going over the top, at this time, that might be a healthier choice. But as I said, Venus is moving pretty quickly, 124% of its usual speed. She's going to move past this trine pretty quickly.
I was thinking it has that compulsive energy as well with that, where you could just be so focused on.
Yes. And it's not just relationships, it could be art, beauty, music, and all sorts of other topics.
Yeah, anything Venusian, art, decorating your home could have some really good transformations with a trine. If you were looking to change up a room and a new type of style, it could work out pretty favorable, I would think, with a trine. A trine is a nice aspect, so things should work out nicely for that.
Yeah, hopefully.
So if you're
Yeah, but sometimes with the outers,
I don't know, I gotta ask you, would you change your hairstyle drastically under this transit?
well, if I was going to do that, I'd be looking at where Venus and Pluto were in your chart. I mean, if you are like a Gemini ascendant, where would that be? That would be coming from the ninth house. I don't know. It would be transformative, hopefully. Yeah, look, I would look at what's happening, if it's making any conjunctions to your chart, or even other aspects,
I think I would wait for Venus to get Cazimi with the sun
that would probably.
under this particular chart. But normally during Venus Pluto, I would, if the sun wasn't that close to Venus, because right now she's being burnt up. I don't know. That's why I was asking you your opinion.
Actually, it's a very valid point. Maybe during the Venus Cazimi would be a really good time to be researching and all that, doing that behind the scenes going on. Maybe, you decide, okay, I want to grow my hair or I want to get it cut, and maybe you get it cut just instead of going from really long to super short, kind of doing it gradually sort of thing. Maybe, during the Cazimi, when the sun and Venus are conjunct, kind of, you might have your aha moment, like, yes, this is what I want, and this is the color and the style and everything. Maybe wait till after Venus gets 15 degrees beyond the sun to actually do it, which will be a while.
Sometimes I have these planetary mixes in my head, and I'm like, I wonder what kinds of things I would do under this particular thing.
Mm, mm.
It's kind of fun to explore those possibilities.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
And then in the next jumpy sign, which is it's not really a jumpy sign, but it is more active than the Taurus. We had a lot of Taurus planetary energy that we've been living with, and this is just going to speed it up. And this next aspect we're talking about is Jupiter enters Gemini, and Gemini is a mercurial sign, and and Mercury is the fastest planet that we have. So if things seem to have been slow, and from what I'm hearing from people out there, that everything seems to be going really, really fast. But if it was slow for you, this should pick up the pace just a bit when Jupiter has entered Gemini. It's a faster moving sign. It's Jupiter is a I think of it as a fire type of planet. It's got that speedy energy.
Yeah,
I
Jupiter.
love Pisces. When it's in Sagittarius, it's more fiery.
What is it? Hot and moist or hot and wet? Hot and wet, I think, because it's conducive to life. Start again.
Jupiter goes into Gemini. It'll retrograde around in October 9th, and
To the fourth.
then it stations direct in February.
So Jupiter is moving into Gemini. Jupiter is still under the beams of the sun at this time. So it's not as powerful as it could be. It's in the sign of its detriment in this sign, because Jupiter and Mercury are kind of very different planets. Mercury is very detail orientated, whereas Jupiter is more big picture orientated. So when Jupiter is in a Mercury ruled sign, as it is when it's in Gemini, it's not as expansive as it could be. It's more focused on the details, but still, it's still a benefic. So hopefully it should bring a lot of good things to people.
I love both of those benefics in a sign. If you are a Gemini rising, wow, this is both having both benefics in your first house is pretty nice.
Mm, yes, very nice. Or 10th house, that would be nice too.
Hmm.
Okay.
Pretty much any aspect when you have both of those planets in any of those houses, I can't think of how it would be a bad thing.
Sixth house might be a little bit troubling. Maybe 12th house too.
I think 12th house could be
Mm,
not as nice for sure. And the next aspect we will be talking about is Mercury will sextile Saturn. And this is a good aspect if you are wanting to learn something, if you are wanting to either learn or teach something. This is or even it's that serious work. It's the let's sit down and learn this algebra. Sit down and write out your alphabet. It's you have to do that serious learning back and forth, that mental work, but it's that Saturn wants to bring that the rules and regulations as Saturn usually wants to do. And this is going to be happening on Monday, May 27th. So this is our holiday here in Memorial Week. This is for Memorial Day. Thank you to all of our veterans. But yeah, Mercury and sextiling Saturn, it's good energy if you're wanting to learn.
yeah. And I mean, Mercury in Taurus is a sign that's not necessarily super quick on the uptake, but it's good for just dedicated, immersing yourself, learning something thoroughly. It's a slower moving sign, but it's tangible. Once you know something, you know something. And that Saturn's actually supporting it. It's probably maybe thinking could be a little bit more conservative or serious. Maybe, I'm not going to say depressing, but more on serious topics. But it's going to be very interesting because we have that sextile, which is helpful, between thinking, communications, and learning, and Saturn, who I always think of as kind of being almost like a headmaster, insisting that the rules are followed and all that sort of thing. But Mercury's soon going to move up to Uranus, which is like the complete opposite of Saturn. He's kind of surprising and shocking and revolutionary. And yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
And this is also when Mercury sextiles Saturn, if you have those hard conversations, this is the time to actually have those conversations. It's the more solemn type of conversations to have.
Interesting.
And then May 31st, on Friday, Mercury will conjunct Uranus. And this energy is obviously very fast. It's very quick. It's happening. Ooh, it's happening at the end of Taurus, for if you're wondering where this happens in your chart. And this is fast thinking. It's new ideas. This is also could be very nervous energy as well. So be
Yeah.
careful of that.
Yeah. For some people, this could be very irritating or even agitative. It could be, so much is going on all at once. It's having to think on your feet and, really keeping you on your toes. It's very things happening, things changing, having to make decisions on the fly. And yeah, some people will love that. Some people will find it a little bit more challenging. And we also have another aspect more or less happening at the same time. I think not that long afterwards, we're going to have Jupiter come up to trine Pluto, which is going to be another big aspect. But yeah, this is a lot going on. And depending where Taurus is in your chart, it probably has something to do with the people and topics associated with that house.
And remember to breathe when you're stressed.
Yes.
And as Linda was referring to earlier, this is going to be happening just 2 or 3 days later. That other aspect happened on Friday. This is happening on Sunday. And this will be Jupiter will trine Pluto. And this is big transformational energy. It's wanting to be intense. It's wanting to be big. It's wanting to make a difference among many people. This could be either really, really good because it has a benefic associated with it, or Jupiter could be there just to make it big. Pluto can be some unsettling energy as it is very intense. It's known to be very intense. It's known to be very transformational.
Yeah.
It could be, it could be not a very nice event, I'd be careful of, the types of activities that you're doing. You want to make sure that whatever it is does not start really small and then blow up to be a big thing, because this is that energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Transformative depth could be big transformations. That Jupiter is optimistic and enthusiastic, but it is in a sign of its detriment. So it's not in the best position it could be. Pluto does have the upper hand. Not only is it, I'm not going to say the bigger planet because it is a very tiny planet, but it is more powerful and it is earlier in zodiacal signs. So it is exerting its energy on Jupiter anyway. And it's in the superior position. Yeah, I'm just looking at Mercury there. Mercury is very close. Mercury and Jupiter are going to come up together, have their conjunction, but both Mercury and Jupiter are under the beams of the sun. They're not in, there's a lot of hidden stuff probably going on or possibly going on at this time. Jupiter can be things like religion, it can be royalty, it can be judges, stuff like that. And if there's things going on behind the scenes, there's something maybe to be aware of at this time in your personal life, wherever Jupiter and Aquarius are. Jupiter, all the planets have their good and their bad signs. Jupiter kind of on the not so good side could be, just way over the top. It can be pie in the sky thinking, not being realistic, but it can also be condescending. It can also be a bit snooty and kind of looking down their nose at somebody. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see how this manifests on an individual level as well as a mundane level, like on the world stage sort of thing. It will be interesting. But look, for many people, this will be like feeling like you're actually in control because, Pluto can be about power dynamics. And if you're feeling good and enthusiastic and like, powerful, that may be a good thing. But just keep one thing I think of when I think negatively of Jupiter is hubris. Don't get too big for your own boots. Don't believe that you're invisible. It's so enjoy if you are feeling powerful and in control and all that. But, what do they say? Man makes plans and, God laughs at man's plans or something. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, look, hopefully, and for many, this won't impact you unless it's making connection in your natal chart necessarily. But there could be some power plays and, some people could be taken down through hubris or naivety, because that Jupiter can be a little bit too pie in the sky sometimes. And like I said, they're both, Jupiter and Mercury are both hidden by the sun at this time. Oh, look at that though. We will have the Venus cazimi very soon as well. Whatever's going on in Gemini is going to be really important. We've had a big focus on the Taurus house, wherever Taurus is in your chart, but we've got 3 planets in Gemini at this time, and we're going to have Mercury move into it pretty soon.
And the next aspect we will be facing on the same day, Sunday, June 2nd, will be Mercury will sextile Neptune. And this is a good day for your intuition is going to be up. You'll be able to read people. You'll be able to like walk into a room, hopefully. This is the energy that's being offered is you'll be able to sense when other people, how everybody else is feeling. So I kind of like this. This is good to, have those, go off and daydream. It's not too serious type of energy. Definitely do not be signing contracts on this day. This is even though it's a sextile, I just wouldn't. Something very well might be hidden, might be kind of in that dreamy state. It's a Sunday. Go sit under a tree with a glass of lemonade and enjoy the day.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I don't think it's a good day for clear thinking. We have that Jupiter Pluto that we are just talking about, and how, there could be a little bit of hubris or naivety associated with that. We have Neptune, which is known for clouding matters, whether that's idealistic or romantic or outright deception. making a sextile to Mercury at this time. I just think this could be a really nice time for creative thinking, maybe idealistic thinking, wanting to help others. And I mean, if that Jupiter-Pluto trine and the Mercury-Neptune sextile were used for good, you know, the betterment of others, that could be really powerful and really inspiring. But I think there's a strong chance of believing what you want to believe, or even being taken advantage of or deceived. I would be very wary with these other aspects going on, and with Mercury and Jupiter under the beams at this time. Mercury, when it does move into Gemini, will be in its own sign, so it will not suffer from being under the beams as much. But at this time, it's still in Taurus, and I think it doesn't hurt to keep your feet on the ground.
Good advice. And then the next aspect is Mercury is going to enter Gemini. And unlike Venus, this is Mercury's sign. This is the sign where Mercury has all of its tools. So it's going to be very fast paced, more talkative. You know, hopefully that more kind of getting it together and moving things forward. So hopefully things will be moving a little bit more at a faster pace to get things done with Mercury moving into Gemini. And it might be two things that you're working on as it's in Gemini is a double-bodied sign. So
Yeah.
if you feel like you've got like one hand over here and one hand over there, that's probably the Gemini energy that you're feeling with Mercury being in there. It wants to be that dualistic type of feelings and activities.
Yeah, Mercury gains a lot of power by being in the sign. It's in a sign that it rules, and it's for night charts, it will be in triplicity. But yeah, it's under the beam still. It's hidden, but it is in its own sign. So we say that it's in its own chariot. So it does give it some protection. Big strong focus on the Gemini part of your chart, because we have 4 planets there now. We've got Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and the Sun. So strong focus, a lot of communications, a lot of thinking, a lot of learning to do with the people or topics associated with Gemini in your chart.
And 199% of its normal speed, it's going really, really fast.
Yeah, it's coming up for that conjunction with the Sun. It's going to set a whole new cycle.
The next aspect that we are going to be talking about will be Mercury will trine Pluto. This is good energy if you are wanting to do a transformational type of speech. If you are trying to, I think of this as a football coach, you know, who is in the locker room and, you know, revving up the team to get them to change their mind, change their game. It's the kind of speech that you would use to change somebody's mind.
Yeah, transformative speech, thinking, learning. Could be very interesting. Mercury is strong here. It is coming up to conjoin Jupiter, though, and Jupiter's not in good position. It's in detriment, and Jupiter can go a little bit overboard. You know, certainly pay attention to those insights and ideas and that, but try and keep your feet on the ground a little bit. That Jupiter is going to inflame things or enlarge things. Just something to be aware of. But yeah, very interesting.
I like this Mercury trine Pluto. It's also a time where you might be interested in learning the occult subjects or the esoteric subjects like astrology or tarot or anything like that. This would also be that time where you might be interested in learning those
Could be, yes.
puzzles, mysteries.
Yes, yeah, that would be a good use of it, getting to the bottom of something, finding out the truth. It could be very interesting.
And this is all happening on June 4th. That Mercury trine Pluto starts early in the morning, and there's a lot of aspects on June 4th. I'm just telling you to keep this in mind. This is on Tuesday. And the next aspect is Mercury will conjunct Jupiter. It's good for groups, for group communications. If you are wanting to talk to a large group, this would be a great aspect to have this in your corner.
Yeah, so we will have had that Mercury trine Pluto aspect earlier, that transformative thinking, and now we've got the conjunction with Jupiter, expansion, optimism, enthusiasm, generosity. So this could be a really good push for getting those ideas out, but there is also the possibility of going over the top, because while Jupiter is a benefic, it is in detriment in this sign. It doesn't work as we expect it. You know, maybe you think that you have the right idea, that this is going to be something fantastic for somebody, that you can help them with this thing. There's that generosity and that enthusiasm, but maybe it's not something that that person wants, or it's too much, or it may be even a little bit condescending, perhaps. It will be interesting to see what happens. Just as I said, with Jupiter being in detriment, it's not going to act as expected. And I think there's a possibility of going overboard, doing too much, going way too far, or being overly optimistic.
Wow.
Hopefully not. But I think there needs to be an awareness that it's not all sunshine and rainbows, that, you know, it could actually, what's that expression? True generosity means accepting ingratitude. You know, maybe you think you're doing something like really nice for somebody and they're kind of, you know, or they don't want it, or,
Okay.
yeah.
And
I'm very thinking too, with that Pluto not far mixed in with Jupiter and Mercury as well, it's possible that there's power dynamics being played out here too, and on both ends.
say that again.
I just think with Jupiter and Mercury both having recently had the trine with Pluto too, that there could be power dynamics. You know, there may be somebody who's kind of like, oh, well, I'm going to do this for that person, and they're going to think that's fantastic and it's wonderful. But maybe that person doesn't want that, doesn't appreciate it, in fact, finds it insulting and condescending. And like I said, you know, there may be power dynamics involved in this. A lot of things going on behind the scenes, or, you know, there could be assumptions made that aren't correct. And yeah, I just think this isn't as, I think there could be a lot of things hidden under the surface that are a little bit unexpected. Yeah, like I said, Jupiter's in detriment. I just think there's maybe, not for everybody, but for some, there could be a need to be a little bit wary, you know. And while that Jupiter is generous and optimistic, maybe check your reasons for doing something big and grand and over the top.
Very, very helpful advice. And then the next aspect we have that you were talking about earlier is Venus will conjunct the sun. And this is when we call it Cazimi. And when the sun and Venus are conjunct, that's literally meaning that Venus is like right in the same line as the sun, and their energies blend a lot of times. This is a time where Venus, you always say, Linda, you always say that whenever a planet is in the heart of the sun, you have the king's ear. And when she is in the heart of the sun, she can get her marching orders for the year.
Yeah.
So this is, or for this particular cycle. So yeah, it's a good time to socialize. This could also be an opportunity to have money gifts, or have or people are bringing you gifts, or you're giving gifts. This is also another time for new love as well. So
Yeah, this is the start of a whole new cycle for Venus. She will meet up with the sun again when she's retrograde, but this is the superior conjunction when she's direct. She's been, you know, running after the sun, trying to catch up to him, and she's caught up to him. And yeah, so there may be insights to do with Venusian topics such as relationships, and that's romantic as well as friends and family and all your relationships, but also what brings us pleasure, beauty, art, music, all those types of things. So there may be some aha moment. Donna was talking earlier about, maybe if you wanted to get like a new look, a new hairstyle or adopt a new look, whether that's clothing or makeup or, styling yourself different. This may not be the best time. This may be a great time to kind of think, oh, yes, I'd like to do that, but maybe wait until Venus is 14, 15 degrees away from the sun on the other side before you actually implement it, perhaps. But this may be a real aha moment to do with relationships or beauty, art, values. What brings you pleasure? What you enjoy, and maybe self-care as well. So yeah, but after
Interesting times, that's for sure. This is, it seems like a lot of intense energies, whether it's the planets are meeting up with the sun or they're trining that Pluto. It just seems like this seems to be a really intense
yeah,
couple of weeks.
it does. Yeah, there's a lot of connections with Pluto, which can be, not for everyone, and it will depend on your individual chart, but contacts with Pluto can be quite challenging at times.
And then we'll be in the new moon in Gemini. And there are a lot there, as you can just look. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 planets in Gemini. So that's going to be it's going to feel like a very busy month.
But thankfully, Mercury, the ruler of this new moon, is also in Gemini, and it's strong there because it's in a sign that it rules, and we'll be able to assist that new moon, which is good. Saturn makes square to it, so new moons are about planting new seeds, new beginnings. So what you plant or what you kind of want to bring forth or start at that time may take longer than you anticipate, because we do have quite a close sextile to that Saturn, and Saturn can mean limitations in that. Mars is a sextile, so not too bad. Uranus is inversion, which is probably not a bad thing. And
Yeah, that
Pluto.
Mars and Pluto was that Mars and Pluto was it's an out of sign square. So it seems
It will
harder
be.
energy.
I'd be more worried about that Mars when it actually moves into Taurus. Like
Yeah.
it's within range, within orb, but I think once it actually moves into Taurus, then we'll really feel it.
Manifestations of it.
Look at
Yeah,
that.
it's just getting close.
This new moon is conjunct Venus. That's nice. I mean,
Ooh.
Venus will
Oh,
still,
wow.
she'll be Kazemi still by Hellenistic, what's the word? Hellenistic,
Standards.
yeah, standards. But she will be out of Kazemi by medieval. But yeah, that's kind of nice, kind of hopefully bringing a bit of sweetness to that new moon. But like I said, we do have that Saturn kind of maybe slowing things down or making us, make sure everything's right with these new beginnings and new starts.
It's kind of like go, 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 stop. It's like everybody's passing by the sun, and then it's like Saturn's like, whoa, wait a second. You can hold the phones. So yeah, but that's not for another fortnight
Mm.
that we will worry about that or have in our minds that somberness that Saturn. We need Saturn. Otherwise we would be going off without having any barriers or boundaries. I mean, Saturn is our boundary keeper, so
Mm.
we kind of need to be held in check as far as Saturn is concerned.
Stability and durability and longevity. So there is that, they all have their good and their bad aspects. But it may just take longer or require more structure than you originally thought. And Donna, what services are you offering and where can people find you?
I offer year ahead readings, natal readings as well, horary, electional, medical as in astrological readings, and I also work with stones. You can get a hold of me through my website at donnabastrology.com, or you can write to me at donnabarconsulting@gmail.com. And I also do have a YouTube channel that I am doing. It's energy, but I want to bring astrology into it as well. Um, so I have some ideas of what of charts that I want to go over on that side, but that the other one is like energy. So I do the energy healing support. So, and I do work with crystals, and this is jet, and this seems to be a very, I've had jet in my life for at least 36 years, and I've been working with it. So it's a pretty good stone to keep around.
Nice.
And as I've always said before, you cannot use anything that I say as medical advice. It must be taken as support. So that's that for that part. And Linda, what are you doing? Can people get a hold of you? What are you up to?
I'm not taking any readings at the moment, probably not till maybe September. Yeah, I'm at Scallywag Astrology and yeah, taking a bit of a rest at the moment. Yeah, so thank you everyone for listening and your likes and your comments and your shares, and I hope this full moon's a good one for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.